In this video, we're going to be looking at equations of a line. Now, equations of a line are usually in the form y equals mx plus c. M is the gradient. And what the gradient is, it tells you how steep your line is. So the larger the gradient you have, the more steeper your line is. And the c would be the y-intercept, basically where it crosses the y-axis. So let's start off by looking at a simple question. So it says L1 is the line y equals 2x plus 3. And it tells us that L2 is parallel to L1. And it tells us that L2 passes through the point 0, 8 on the y-axis. And it wants us to work out the equation of L2. And if you remember from before, when you know two lines are parallel, what it's telling you is that the gradients must be the same. Parallel lines have the same gradient. So let's look at L1 and see what the gradient is, since we know that L2 is going to be parallel to L1. So since L1 is written in the form y equals mx plus c, as we like, we can clearly see that the m value here is 2. So the gradient of L1 is 2. So now, since they are parallel, we know that L2's gradient is also 2. And we're not concerned about the y-intercept of L1 because it's just the gradients which have a relationship when we say two lines are parallel. Now that we have the gradient for L2, we can start by writing its equation. We'll write it in the form y equals mx plus c. So we'll write y equals 2x. And we don't know the y-intercept, so we'll simply just write plus c for now. Now, if we go back to the question, it told us that L2 also passes through 0, 8. Now, where is 0, 8? It's on the y-axis. If you plot 0, 8, you'll be plotting on the y-axis. Since 0, 8 is already on the y-axis and our line passes through 0, 8, it means that y-intercept for our line must be 8. So that means that c value is 8. So we can simply go ahead and finish that off by writing y equals 2x plus 8. Now let's look at this question. It tells us that the line passes through 2, 5 and 4, 15. And the question wants us to work out the equation of the line in the form y equals mx plus c. So this question is slightly trickier because it hasn't told us the gradient, nor has it told us where it crosses on the y-axis. And looking at those 2 points given, none of them lie on the y-axis, so we definitely don't know the c value by looking at the coordinates. So how are we going to do this question? First thing we're going to do is work out the gradient. Now, if you've done the topic on gradient of a line, you know that the gradient of a line is simply change in y over change in x. So let's go ahead and work out the gradient first. Some of you might remember change in y over change in x as rise over run. Okay, so for change in y, we're going to subtract the y coordinates. So we'll do 15 minus 5. And with the change in x's, we'll do 4 minus 2. Now, we must do 4 minus 2. We can't switch and say 2 minus 4. If you had done 5 minus 15, then it would be fine for you to do 2 minus 4. It's very important that you go the same way when you do change in x and when you do change in y. You cannot switch. So since we did 15 minus 5, we'll do 4 minus 2. So here's your change in y over your change in x. And we get the gradient as 5. So what we can do now is start by writing the equation of the line because we know the m now. So we'll write the equation and we'll fill in the m. So we'll probably get a mark for writing that with the gradient in as 5. So now we need to find out that missing c value. Okay, so none of our coordinates lie on the y-axis, so we can't just simply look at them and find out what c is. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to sub in one of the coordinates into our equation, as it is now. Now, you could choose either of the 2 coordinates. Because they both are on your line, both of them will give the same c value. Now, I'm going to choose to sub in the coordinate 2, 5. So we'll sub y in as 5 and x in as 2. And by rearranging, we can just simply solve what c is. And now that we know what c is, we can throw that missing c into the equation. So we can write the equation again with the missing c value in. And there we have it, the equation of our line. Y equals 5x minus 5. They might also ask you to work out equation of a line, and your line might be drawn for you. Now, here we have a line drawn for us, and we can pick two coordinates, two nice integer coordinates, and work out our gradient. And after you've chosen your two coordinates, you'll just do change in y over change in x. And since it's drawn for you, getting the y-intercept should be simple because you can simply see where does your line cross the y-axis. If you're not sure about working the gradient of a line, we have a separate video on that, and I'd advise you to go back and have a look at that because there's a few ways to do it. When you've completed rise over run, you get negative 6 over 6, which equals minus 1. So therefore our gradient is minus 1. Now we can fill in y equals mx plus c. So m equals minus 1. So the equation will be y equals minus 1x. And the y-intercept is plus 1, so we'll have simply plus 1. And remember, when you have minus 1x, you can always just write that as minus x. That looks a lot better. So our equation is y equals minus x plus 1. I hope you found that video useful. Support us by liking, subscribing, and share this with your friends. And if you still got some more questions on anything, drop a post on our forum at examqa.com where you'll find your questions answered.